Because it makes us happy.
Always? Oh, if it always would make us happy to do things for others immediately, we would all be doing things for others all the time. Not like that. Sometimes it can be quite difficult, especially when there's no result or when they don't let us and all this. So, yeah, if you voluntarily do things for others, one of the quickest results is, if you can let go of expectations what the result is, then sure, it gives us a lot of happiness now. But what's another reason also? We totally depend on them. We owe it to them almost. You see, many of the things that we enjoy, or almost all of them, doesn't come from ourselves. Clothes that you're wearing, jewelry, your whole comfort, the whole food, your job, your money, it's all through the kindness of others. Well, sometimes we say, oh, it's not kindness, they're doing this because they're paid. Well, it doesn't really matter. You see, if the cleaning woman cleans your apartment, I don't think it was her dream to become a cleaning woman. Why is she doing it? Because she needs the money, but she does it. Or a cleaning man, I don't know if you have a man or a woman. So, if you see it as, well, it's their duty because I pay them, then you become, that's another attitude, and you become very demanding, and you're probably never happy with what she or he does. Whereas if you go, wow, you know, if that person wouldn't do it, I would have to do this. Then there is already, from the beginning, there's gratitude. You're not so demanding, and you're happier. Then, of course, if he or she doesn't do a good job, it's okay to say, yeah, but again, like, sometimes it's good to put yourself into the shoes of this cleaning person. You know, they don't have so much enthusiasm as you would like them to have, I think. You know, I'm sure you would like them to be very joyful when they clean your apartment, but they do it to be, you know, if you want to be honest, they do it. If you give them another job, better paid, easier, I'm sure they will take it.
What would you say to a cleaning lady that comes to here to study? Like, she has no money, her family is, and she got a life that is not good as she sees it. So, what would you say to her, like, to practice?
Well, if she comes and asks for a practice, I would start talking to her and see what she is. If she doesn't ask, I don't tell her. So this is it. This is another way. Like, if somebody asks you for a practice, then you can start trying to find out what their possibilities are, what their religion is, what they would like to practice.
I'm trying to ask, what would you say to a person that thinks that his karma is not good? Like I can think that my karma is not good, and then I can look at people that have more money or are more successful. And then I say, okay, so they are good people, so they have good karma. I'm probably bad, I don't know, because I don't have, and then I don't know how to, I get frightened, I get frustrated, and I go like, I don't want to work anymore in this way, because it's not fair, you know, and then I feel like this cleaning lady that has to clean other people's
homes, yeah,
like other people get to enjoy this world more than other people, and then I don't know how to settle this in my mind.
Well, in your mind, so that you're not getting angry at the people who exploit them, it's good to see, when you know about the law of cause and effect, that these people who exploit those people now will most probably end up as cleaning people in another life.
So if someone is a millionaire?
But the problem is, you know, if you say that to a cleaning woman, then it sounds as if, oh, you deserve it, so you better finish your karma. So you're not saying these things to anyone. This is for us to know, so that we're not getting. So if a millionaire, yeah?
If someone is a millionaire, and he has like the power to use his money to build schools for poor people, so I can say, he has a good karma, he's a better person than me, or what? Like, I'm just asking, because I'm very competitive, and I feel a lot of jealousy, and this is my problem, and unfairness between people, and I try to find a solution in this.
Yeah, this is what I mean. So, you know, like, when a realized person sees somebody being harmed or exploited, that realized person is not getting angry, but has a lot of compassion for both parties because they have the bigger view. That one who is exploited is also there, is a ripening of their actions from the past. Right? It's not one-to-one like this. It's not as simple as that. It's very complicated how karma works. Yeah, and the one who is exploiting now, it's not that they are creating for their next lives, they're creating abundance and richness, is that they will lose everything. This is how usually one deals with karma. To understand the law of cause and effect, to understand whatever action I do now will have a consequence. Okay? And then what is practicing Dharma? Practicing Dharma is that good condition that we have now, where we can produce positive karma, where we can produce virtues. You know? And on the lowest level of virtue, just abstaining from harming others is virtue, is positive. You can, because of the good conditions that we have in our life, what we call precious human rebirth, we can transform every moment into Dharma, not just on the weekends when you come here. Yeah? Like this is mind training, for example. It's like when you open the door, you can say, may I open the door for all beings to a happy state? When you close it, may I close the door to lower state? When you turn on the light, you can think, may I be able to give people wisdom so that they know what brings happiness, like this. And just this one thought in the morning, may I never be, this is for people who understand what I'm saying now, may I never be able to be separated, may I never be separated from the two bodhicittas. It's so powerful, because slowly the mind goes in that direction to really have this mind of enlightenment. As quickly as possible, I want to attain enlightenment. So now again, with your jealousy, you want to do something. So it's again the same situation. The Dalai Lama will tell you, don't get frustrated. Other people tried and they failed. Yeah? So whatever we can do for us not to be unjust, because you see this whole thing about injustice is like when we are not in favor of the whole thing, like when we are in disadvantage. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Sometimes my English is a bit funny. Then we get really upset. But when the injustice is to our advantage, we don't get so upset. Like when it is to our advantage, and in order to even out the injustice, we would have to lose or we would have to pay, then we don't get so upset. Only when others would have to pay, or others have to be more just, then we get really upset. And especially when we identify with the poorer people. So if you have a cleaning woman, it's like this woman, that is her job, and this is what she can do. So at least try to create like good conditions for her and give her a decent salary and be kind to her. This is about all we can do. And some will appreciate it, some will not, and they will start stealing your things because they think you're stupid. Why are they stealing your things? Why? Because you're kind to them now?
No.
When you know about the law of cause and effect, or the Buddhist view of why would they steal your things? Because you must have taken somebody else's things in another life or in this life. So then when somebody steals something from you, you have to just check this life. Did I never cheat? Did I never take something that didn't belong to me? If you can truly say, no, I didn't, then you have to go into past lives. But very often we also kind of take advantage of situations where we can pass by without having to pay. Yes or no? Yeah. I mean, no? Sure. And then it's totally okay. We're not getting home being, spending a sleepless night. I was so unjust. We should. Actually, that's what should upset us when we are doing negative things. Because it will come back to us. Karma is like a boomerang. We throw it, and at one point it will come back. The problem is that we don't remember when it comes back, that I threw it, and then we get upset. Who threw this boomerang? Because, it
Sometimes
takes us.
it really happens, like when horrible things happen to you, and you cannot understand why it's happening. And sometimes the only thing is that you cannot remember nothing from this.
Yeah. So this is where, this morning I talked about the 3 categories, and karma goes into that category. We cannot see what we did in past lives. So either we trust what the Buddha says, that everything that happens to us has a cause. And the cause most probably was not created in this life. So either you trust it, or you don't trust it. And if you don't trust it, then it's good to find another view. Because the view, just coincidence, I don't think that's very helpful. Yeah. But also the view, why me, and then getting angry, that's also not very helpful. But then really finding, now I feel the consequences of a past action. I feel that this hurts. Be it horrible or small, we get upset about small things also. Yeah, so that hurts. So then, the thought should come up, I have to be careful not to produce these causes anymore. But very often our instinct, our instinctive mind, or our habitual tendency is like, somebody is unkind to you, then we are unkind to them. This is our habitual behavior because we think we have a right to be like that. So it's not like that. So then when you see how it feels to be treated in an unjust way, you make a decision, and you will still treat others in an unjust way because we have these habits, these tendencies. You learn that when you go to karma, that karma also, like karma means action. The action also creates habits. Yeah? Not just results, but also habits. So then when you feel the consequence, and you feel it, like, wow, this is really not nice, and then you might start to pay more attention to what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're thinking, in order for this to finish and not to repeat itself. Very often it repeats itself. People have been treated in a very bad way, then when they have the occasion, they treat others in a bad way. Very, very often, unfortunately. This is how it continues. Yeah. So in terms of karma, there's nothing that is really unfair. It's just consequences that come. But not, then when we hear this, I'm going totally off the topic, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's about the past, so it's also part of the past. So, when we hear this for the first time, because we're so used to a theistic system, some omnipotent energy, force, God, or whatever you want to call it, sitting somewhere and having the power to do things. Yeah? This is what we grow up with, and this is very deep sitting. Yeah, so when we hear about law of cause and effect, we think it's a kind of a system of reward and punishment. Like, you've been good, so therefore you have a nice life. You've been bad, so therefore now you have a bad life. It's not about this. It's consequences. It's a law. You create that action, and there's nobody there. Nobody needs to direct you into a certain situation, because it's the mind itself who directs us into a situation where these imprints can ripen, be they positive or negative. This is how it works. It's almost as if they act almost like magnets. Yeah? So it's not always obvious, but sometimes you can see people who have accidents, and then they go like, I don't know why I was there. So it is as if some kind of instinct or force has kind of pushed them into that situation, or people who avoid accidents. And like I was when I was here, I think first or second time, it was during the second Intifada, and I was in this taxi, and the taxi driver all of a sudden he gets really nervous because on the radio there was a bomb in Jerusalem in a school bus. So his daughter, he said, my daughter is on that bus, and then he phoned, and it so happened that the daughter was not on the bus because she overslept, and 3 of her friends waited for her, didn't want her to go alone to school, so they thought, okay, we wait for her, we miss the bus and we go later. What is that, coincidence? Why these other ones were on the bus and why not she? So that sounds very much as if somebody is pulling the strings somewhere, but it's not like this. They say it's the mind that is creating these imprints, it's also the mind that is kind of directing you in a very, very subconscious way into those situations where these things can ripen. So we don't know what we have on our mind, right? So we could have like imprints on the mind that makes us millionaires or something like that. Well, the conditions for them to ripen are not there. Yeah, or we could have imprints on the mind to starve in a famine, but the conditions, the outer conditions are not there. So karma is a very, very complicated topic, but the first thing I think you have to get out of your mind is that it's a reward and punishment system, because it is not.
What do you explain to a child that was like...
Nothing. We can stop there. We can stop there. Nothing. You love the child, and that's it. You're not explaining anything. They're not able to grasp it.
This is my question.
Yeah.
If the child, 5, 6 years old, was molested, brutally attacked by his parents, how can you explain his karma to him? Oh, just wait till you get older, and then maybe you will understand.
Well, if a child is really asking you, not you from your side trying to explain, if the child is really asking, why is this happening to me? The best thing to do is, the person who did that to you is not in his right mind and is suffering. That's about the best way. That this is not normal for it to happen. Don't make it normal, by all means. Yeah? And also, this is too different. It depends in what state the child is. Again, you see, it's difficult to give global answers to these questions because it depends very much on the child. Yeah? So, if you look in Buddhist countries, people grow up with that view. So when something negative happens to them, they have very, very good tools because they're familiar with the view. They have very, very good tools to deal with difficult situations that happen to them. For us, we have to be very, very, very careful when we start to apply that system, because very quickly we go into, oh, this happened to me because I deserve it, because I was bad. Yeah. So, and then we don't take into consideration in another life when we did this negative action, we were somebody totally different. Of course, we wouldn't do it now. Yeah. Also, then there's this other fact that karma increases. Like from a very small action, you can have a big result. So when you know all of this together, then it is easier to accept. I was in a talk with Rinpo Tulku the other day. It's a Tibetan Lama, Kagyu Lama, and the talk was about karma. And so somebody said, look, there's big injustice that has been done to me, and by friends, and I could go to court. Maybe some of you are, I've been cheated by somebody, I could go to court, and I would probably win. But there's then that person is terribly angry at me, and it will create a lot of difficulties, and I'm lawyers and all this. What shall I do as a Buddhist? Am I supposed to, as a Buddhist, just say, okay, karma, I'm not going to court and da-da-da, or what do I do? So he said, look, whether you go to court or not is not important. What you have to do is to deal with your anger against that person. That is important. I thought it was a very, very wise answer. And then somebody got quite aggressive and said, well, you with your law of karma then, and you can explain everything. Are you always happy? No, are you so realized that you're always happy? And so he looked at the person and he said, well, I'm not realized, but yeah, I'm pretty happy. Because people are nice to me. Why should I not be happy? This whole thing about, also, when you know about law of cause and effect, it's kind of, you can let go. You don't need, with karma, you're not going to dig up what happened. This is not what is meant to be. This is more, again, the Western mind, the psychological mind wants to find the cause. Like with karma, when you learn about law of cause and effect, you go into the present. What do I do now? What happened, happened. This is it. You learn to let go and to continue a more or less happy life. Because if you drag this with you, Holocaust is a good example. If you drag it with you generation after generation after generation, it creates a lot of additional suffering. But it's difficult. It's difficult to change these views, yeah, especially if something really big happened to you. So leave that alone. The bigger things, I would say, leave them alone at the beginning before you start to kind of analyze, oh, what could I have done that this has happened to me? Yeah? Leave it alone. And also, it's only the Buddhist and the Hindu view, by the way. Yeah? So you don't need to accept this. This is what is being said. That every action we do with body, speech and mind creates an imprint on the mind, and then at one point when the outer conditions are there for this imprint to ripen, or the inner conditions, then it will ripen as such, either happiness or suffering. And it's very well declared what is virtue, what is a positive action, and what is a negative action. And as I said this morning, what determines whether the action is positive or negative is the intention behind it. Okay? Is that satisfying or not really? Yes, to your question. You see, it would be great, it would be so fantastic if somebody's suffering something really negative has happened to them, and we could give them something and they can let go and continue with their life. But it very much depends on them, what they do with it.
It's not about letting go. When a child gets older and he can understand the situation, okay, so he can let go and think about, okay, I want to continue future things. But I'm talking about a child who is 5, 6 years old. He doesn't
About
know-
the child who...
A 5, 6 years old child.
Yeah, this is what I said. What did I
More
say?
than his parents.
What did I say at the beginning? Huh? What did I say right at the beginning? I didn't even let you finish your answer. What did I say?
Yeah, you said stop there.
Huh? What did I say?
Say nothing.
Love the child. Give that child a lot of love. That's the first thing. Be accepting to the child's suffering. It's so important that the child feels worthy to be happy. You know, because whenever, this is the funny thing of our mind, that when something negative happens to us, then we feel guilty and unworthy to be happy. It's so strange. It's an ego play somehow. I don't know why and where that comes from. I'm pretty sure psychology has a lot of answers to that. That we, you know, when something happens to us, we want to hide it. And we feel guilty about it. We're ashamed about it. Maybe our arrogance, who says, how could that have happened to me? Maybe that's what it is. I don't really know what it is. Yeah. Or we totally exploit the whole thing and we see ourselves as victims, and then we do whatever comes into our mind.
I think it's important to say that something has happened to us, because it's also an issue that we have to figure out, because sometimes how can we decide that this certain thing happened to us? Because if it happened to maybe to other people also. It's not us specifically that we cannot take the credit for the thing to happen. For example, if we lose somebody we love, is that thing happened to us, or happened to him, or happened to other people that are here in his lives, in their lives? Or it's also a question. Not everything that we take something as ours.
Yeah. And we don't see that, for example, also we don't see that it happens to everybody. You know, if you are in a traffic jam, I tend to take small examples where you can learn in a safe way to open up and to dissolve the aversion or the tension. If you're in a traffic jam and you get really upset, and you look around, I mean, all these other people are there as well, and then all of a sudden, because when we start to think all the people, the mind becomes more spacious. When we think, I, me, the mind is very, very small.
Yeah,
So, and then sometimes, you know, again with children, if there's really, there's horrible things that happen to children that should never happen. So then, for ourselves also, it's very difficult to deal with it. And so also, even for a child, it's difficult to see that he's not the only one that this happens. So I think love and acceptance is the best thing to do with a small child. That the child feels seen and feels loved. But I don't have any children, so I don't really know. This is a very good thing that to learn out of experience, not so much from the book, I think, but really to listen to your own heart also. What would be appropriate at the moment when the child is asking that? Because these children suffer a lot. They drag it with them, and then they can become either depressive or aggressive. So, yeah, it would be great if we would have a remedy that we can show them what to do, but, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist also.
Let's say in the Jewish Bible we say, thank God for not making me a woman, or for making me a woman.
Also the Buddhists say that.
Yeah. So, and also I say that because when I think of
Thank God that you didn't make me a woman.
So if we are women and we are black, or we are a minority, is that like a result of prior actions that we have now to be a woman?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they would
So I
say.
have to take it on.
So, but it's okay. Look, this is also very it's very cultural.
There are people that are powerful, more powerful.
Yeah, it's
People
usually
that are
men.
less.
And the people who get battered and abused are usually women. And the people who are in the prison are usually men, and there's much less women in the prisons than men. So, so that's another thing. If you have the body of a woman, it looks as if you have less chances to create more big negative karma. So that's a good thing. There's also advantages, not just only bad. Also, it's the Dalai Lama always says it looks like women have more natural compassion. They don't have so much this power thinking and whatever. So there is advantages. And if you look, if you count how many men, how many women in general in the groups in the West, as a woman, I think you have more chance to be let alone if you want to do spiritual practice. I don't know how it is for men, but probably you have to defend yourself quite often against your colleagues in the office or whatever that you're doing. Not so much anymore, because again, meditation becomes quite fashionable, so it's easier. But in the past, it's like, people who burn like incense sticks and that are a bit weird and like that. So for men, it was much more difficult to do. To say that they're doing spiritual practices. So it's very cultural, this whole thing. It's very cultural. But still, in India, if you're born as a woman in India and you don't have money, you don't have that many possibilities to have a happy life. Either you marry the widower who lost his wife already and is old and maybe drunk or whatever, because your parents cannot pay a dowry. But you need to be married anyway. That's still very important in India. You need to have children. Or you can become a prostitute, or you can go and work in a household for very little money. So it's not so great. Yeah. But again, be careful. It's not a punishment. So just the men who kind of despise women, it's good if they start thinking, maybe one day I'll be reborn as a woman. And the women who despise men, it's also good to think, maybe one day I'll be reborn as a man. We kind of, this I that seems to be permanent, we seem to drag it with us, life after life after life. Okay? But if you will continue to come to the courses, all this will become more and more clear. Yeah, how karma works. And also the teachings is to be applied to us, not so much what we tell others. Yeah. Like this whole thing, I want to be of benefit to others. First we have to really know how to apply it to ourselves. This is what Losang Precious, who was here in Israel when he was very small, he was maybe 6 years old, and he lived next to Tushita, and so after every Tushita course we would go over to his house and people could ask him questions. So, the biggest question was always, don't you miss to be a child and to play with other children? He said, no, in a very simple way. And then sometimes also everybody would bring a chocolate, so he's already quite big, he's still quite big. And it looks as if maybe some body karma we take to our next lives, I don't know. So then he's sitting there with this heap of chocolate, and one person asked, are you going to eat all this, a 6-year-old child, yeah? Will you eat this chocolate all by yourself? And he looked at the person and said, would you? Kind of, what are you asking? Of course not. And somebody would ask, do you remember your past lives? He would say, yes. Can you explain emptiness? 6 years old, he would start to say about,